Hi all, let us begin with the next session on baseband demodulation or detection. So we are talking of baseband demodulation. One can ask why this baseband signaling is required at the first place, and then the received waveform, whatever will be received, it will be already there in the form of a pulse. So why again demodulation is needed? So the answer is that arriving baseband pulses are not in the form of an ideal pulse shapes that is required for us to detect that it is 1 or 0. Each one will be occupying its own symbol interval. So what we have to do is the filtering at the transmitter has to be done, and the channel typically cause the received pulse sequence to suffer from ISI, and that ISI, due to the induction of this ISI or intersymbol interference, what happens to the signal is we call the signal is getting smeared off and not quite ready for sampling and detection. So that's where we need our demodulator, that is receiving filter, which is going to recover a baseband pulse with the best possible signal to noise ratio, and which is going to be free of any ISI or zero ISI. So in such case we are now looking for the two blocks here, which is the demodulated and sampled block and the detection block, which is highlighted. So along with this, whenever we are trying to do with the demodulation and detection, we are also going to look for the equalization processes. It is a technique that is used to help or it is a process which is required for every type of communication channel. What will this equalization does for us? It embodies a sophisticated set of signal processing technique, making it possible to compensate for channel induced interference, and it is an important area for many of the communication systems. So what we are basically going to do, we are going to demodulate, sample, detect the sample, make the decisions based on the arrival of the sample, and then calculate the signal to noise ratio, and we make the whatever the received signal is going to be there ISI free, and then we go for what is called as an equalization process. This equalization process is very important for us to have the proper detection of the levels. So this is about the baseband demodulation or detection. In the same way, we are also going to look for a band pass model, which will be there in the further sessions. So this band pass model is not of importance as of now. We are looking for only baseband demodulation and detection. So when it comes for baseband demodulation and detection, we need to look for some criteria which will depend or which will decide how this error performance can be overcome, because we are talking of a pulse losing its original shape when it reaches the receiver end. So how do we look for the error? What's the performance of that particular pulse that we have received? So that all those components comes under the topic signals and noise. So coming for the very first thing, we have error performance degradation in communication system. What is the job of this? The task of the detector is to retrieve the bit stream from the received waveform as error free as possible, notwithstanding any of the impairments that the signal has undergone when it is being transmitted from the transmitter end to the receiver end. So there are two basic or two primary causes for error performance degradation. The first is the effect of filtering at the transmitter, channel and receiver, which causes intersymbol interference, and there is another one which is the error performance degradation due to the presence of the electrical noises and interference by which is produced by these kinds of electrical noises. And then we also have thermal noise, which is due to the Gaussian distributed, its two-sided spectral density is going to be divided n0 by 2, which remains, or we have electrical noise which is going to be present, which is due to the other kinds of varieties of sources such as galaxy, atmospheric, switching transient, intermodulation noise, etc. And when it comes for thermal noise, it is the noise due to the temperature that is getting raised either in the amplifier circuits or any other circuits, and this keeps on adding with the original signal. So that's about the very first thing, which is error performance degradation in communication system. So then we have the process that we have to conduct now, which is, we call it as demodulation or detection. We already know the meaning of demodulation. Demodulation is nothing but it's a recovery of the original waveform which has been transmitted from the transmitter end to the receiver end. And then we also look for the next term, which is detection. Detection means the decision making process of selecting the digital meaning of the waveform. So what kind of decision we are going to take upon the reception of the sampled signal after demodulation. So that's about the detection process. So now let us look for the next case, how we are going to do this and why we are going to do this. Why baseband demodulation is required or detection is required. As already mentioned, whatever the received pulses are there, all of them will be distorted because of the following reasons. One is due to ISI, which causes smearing of the transmitted pulses, and then the next is the addition of channel noise, which degrades the transmitted pulses, and the third is the transmission channel, which causes further smearing of the transmitted pulses. Demodulation or detection words, we make use of these two terms interchangeably, which means almost the same process of getting back the original waveform. It is the process of determining the transmitted bits from the distorted bits. Now you can see here at a propagation distance, the transmitted waveform is in the pulse wave. As it moves from 2, 3, 4 and it travels to 5, 6 and so on, you can see the strength of the signal or the pulse is changing its shape and it is getting traversed across the region. Then in order to fix this, we need to follow two basic steps in the demodulation or detection. One is waveform to sample transformation and the another step is decision making step. The first step is waveform to sample transformation and the second is decision making step. The symbol here SOI of t is the transmitted waveform, which will definitely get affected by the white Gaussian noise as we have seen in the previous session. So the received signal or the received waveform, we are going to refer it as R of t. So this R of t is nothing but it's the received signal degraded by noise N of t and possibly degraded by impulse of the channel, which is Hc of t, which we are trying to describe here as R of t is equal to SI of t in convolution with Hc of t plus N of t. N of t is here assumed to be 0, meaning we are trying to consider a zero mean AWGN process, and the star symbol refers to convolution operation. For binary transmission over an ideal distortion less channel where convolution with Hc of t produces no degradation. So if I am going to look for a channel which is ideally distortion less, then this Hc of t component, this component can be removed. So that will gives rise to the received signal, or which will gives rise to the representation of the received signal R of t as Si of t plus N of t, and where I is going to tend from 1, 2 and so on, and t is going to be lying between 0 and capital T. So it will be there always between the time interval 0 and capital T. So then moving on to the other blocks in the conversion, the next block is the frequency down conversion block, which is for band pass signal as represented here. This block, it can be present either in the demodulation modulation section, or it can be there at the receiving end. This will be always placed at the very beginning of the receiving filter. So what is the job of this frequency down conversion block is, it is going to perform frequency translation for band pass signals operating at some radio frequency levels. So this will help us in frequency translation. So that is where we are going to make use of the frequency down conversion block. And then we have the another block within the demodulator and the sample block is the receiving filter, which is present, which performs waveform recovery. This particular receiving filter which performs waveform recovery in the preparation for the next important step, which is going to be the detection. So we will get here the received filter will recover the signal, equal amplitudes are compensated for channel induced ISI, and the sample are sent one after the other to the detector block. The detector block's job is to now take the decisions and get the output of it. We know the job of the detector or detection. It means it is going to be a decision making. So detector has to do some or take some decision making processes of selecting the digital meaning of the waveform that it has got to it. So what it has to do is, if at all, if it is undergoing or if it is considering error correction coding, then we are going to represent that as a channel symbol, or the estimated values out of that. When there is error correction coding is involved, we represent that it as UI cap, which is an estimated value. And then we have, if at all the error correction coding is not present, we are going to call that detector output as the message symbols, and it is represented as MI cap, which is again an estimate of message symbols. So this kind of things we call it as hard decisions, whereas the UI we can either call it as a hard or soft decisions based upon the kind of the error coding mechanisms or error correction mechanisms either we are implementing or not implementing. We call it as hard decision making or soft decision making. At the end of each symbol duration t, the output of the sampler here which is present, so this sampler here will give us an output which we call it as pre-detection point, which yields a sample which we are going to represent it as Z of t. So this Z of t, sometimes it will have a voltage value which will be directly proportional to the energy of the received signal, and it is going to be inversely proportional to the noise. So based upon this, in the second step here in the decision making, the decision is made regarding the digital meaning of that particular sample. We assume that the input noise is Gaussian random process noise and the receiving filter in the demodulator is linear. A linear operation performed on a Gaussian random process will produce a second Gaussian random process. Maybe the terms are a bit complex here, which is nothing but the noise due to this particular sampled value whatever we are going to get is due to the presence of this Gaussian random process, and this Gaussian noise is going to produce few more noise components. Thus the filter output noise is Gaussian in nature. The output at the very first step yields a test statics. What is that test statics? It is going to be as shown in the further expressions. it is going to be z of t will be equal to ai of t plus n naught of t, where I is going to tend from 1, 2, 3 and so on, and then where this ai of t is the desired signal component and n of t is the noise component. To simplify this particular expression, we can simply write it as z will be equal to ai plus n naught, right? And then the noise component n naught is a zero mean Gaussian random variable here, and thus this z of t is a Gaussian random variable, which mean either of a1 or a2 is depending on whether a binary 1 or binary 0 was sent. a1 if binary 1 is sent, a0 if binary 0 was sent. So the probability density function, if we want to write it for this Gaussian random noise n naught, which can be expressed as probability probability of n naught, which will be 1 by sigma naught square root of 2 pi exponential minus 1 by 2 n naught by sigma naught whole square. So this is how we are going to calculate the probability density of this Gaussian random noise n naught. Now where the sigma naught square or the sigma naught square, we know it is a noise variance. This sigma naught square here is going to be called as noise variance. So now what we will do is we will try to find the conditional probabilities for transmitting symbols, each symbols S1, S2 and so on like that. So now that conditional probability density functions, we are going to represent it as probability of z for symbol 1 and probability of z for symbol 2. So with these conditional probabilities, the rightmost conditional PDFs Pz of 1 is called the likelihood of S1. Here this we are going to call it as likelihood of S1. It's illustrate the probability density function of the random variable z of t, given that S1 symbol was transmitted. Similarly, on the leftmost side, whatever we have here, this is going to give us the likelihood of S2. Likelihood refers to occurrence. This is most likely to occur. So that's how we call it as likelihood of S2, and this is going to be the PDF of Z2 Z of t, given that symbol S2 was transmitted. So this is how we try to calculate the things, and depending on these probability expressions, we are going to have the probability density curves or the likelihood curves being represented here. This is the conditional probability density function curves for likelihood of S1 and for likelihood of S2. All this process for calculation of the probability of the noise, likelihood of S1, likelihood of S2, and then plotting the probability density function, conditional probability values of S1 and S2, all this will fall under our step 1 process, where we are trying to transform the waveform into the samples. And at the second step, we know we are trying to do the decision making. So at the second step, the detection is performed by choosing the hypothesis that the result from this particular threshold measurement holds good. So what is that threshold measurement? That is, it is given here. So it is z of t is greater or lesser with respect to the gamma value. What is this greater for H1 and lesser for H2? These two values, we call it as hypothesis. H1 and H2 are the two possible binary hypotheses. The inequality relationship indicates that hypothesis 1 is chosen if z of t is greater than your gamma value, and hypothesis 2 is chosen if z of t is less than your gamma value. So this is how the choosing of the hypothesis 1 or 2 or a binary value 1 or 2 or binary value 1 or 0 is chosen on this particular kind of decisions. Now if z of t is made equal to gamma, the decision can be an arbitrary one. Now you can see there are only two values, either it has to be greater or it has to be lesser. Now if this value of z of t is made equal to gamma, we say that the decision is now the arbitrary one. Choosing h1 is equivalent to deciding the signal s1 of t was sent, and hence a binary 1 is detected. Similarly, choosing h2 will give us or will tell us that we are trying to find the signal which is s2 of t was sent, and hence its binary equivalent value which is going to be detected will be equal to 0. So basically h1 and h2 are either s1 is sent or s2 is sent. So that's about the first step of sampling, and then the second step of thresholding or threshold measurement hypothesis that has to be considered. So now we are going to look for the vector view of signals and noise. How do actually the signal or a noise can be represented in a vectorial form or in a geometric form. Now we are trying to present a geometric or vectorial view of a signal waveform, which are that are very useful for either baseband or bandpass signals. So let us define an n-dimensional orthogonal space. Orthogonal, all the axes are perpendicular to each other. So we are trying to define such kind of n-dimensional orthogonal space, and a space characterized by a set of n linear independent functions, which we are going to call it as phi j. So phi j of t, which is also called as the basis function. So how this basis function is going to work? So this basis function, to perform or to get a value in the given arbitrary space, it has to satisfy this condition. The condition is integration from 0 to t psi j of t psi k of t dt should be equal to kj delta of j into delta of jk. And how does this t stands for? This t is going to lie between 0 and capital T, and the values of j and k are going to be equal to 1 to n, and this operator which is delta of jk here, this particular operator delta of jk will be equal to 1 for the values if j is equal to k, and it is going to be 0 for other values other than the values of j and k, or if j and k are not equal, it is going to take up the value as 0. So this delta function we call it as Knocker delta function. So we are going to call that as Knocker delta function, and it is as defined by our earlier equation, like jk will be equal to 1 if j is equal to k, and it is equal to 0 for other conditions, right? So this we are going to call it as a Knocker delta function. Then keeping these things in mind, so what we will do is, let us take an example of such a space with n is equal to 3, which is as shown here. We are having mutually perpendicular axes which are designated as, there is a mistake here in the print, it is psi 1 of t, and this is psi 2 of t, and this is psi 3 of t. If this psi j of t corresponds to the real valued voltage or current waveform component associated with a 1 ohm resistive load, then we make use of the equations that we already defined, like integration from 0 to t psi j of t, psi k of t dt, and which will be equal to a Knocker delta function. And the normalized energy in joules dissipated in the load in t seconds due to this psi j value is calculated. So, how do we get that normalized energy values? It is taken as E of j will be equal to integration from 0 to t psi j square of t dt, which is nothing but kj. One reason that we are trying to focus on an orthogonal signal space is that because of the Euclidean distance measurement, which is very fundamental in our detection process and are easily formulated in a free or an orthogonal spaces. Now, with that particular basic concept, let us assume that there are m signals and n orthonormal basis functions. Orthonormal basis function, we already saw that it is our psi of j, right. So, we have such n orthonormal basis function and there are m signal waveforms. Let us try to find out the for any arbitrary finite set of waveforms Si of t, where I is going to tend from 1, 2, 3 up to m values, where each member of the set is physically realizable and of duration t seconds, capital T seconds, which can be expressed as a linear expression or a linear combination of n orthogonal waveforms like psi 1 of t, psi 2 of t, psi 3 of t, where n is less than or equal to m. So, depending on that, we are going to have the very first expression, which is S1 of t will be equal to A11 psi 1 of t plus A12 psi 2 of t plus so on A1 of n psi n of t. Likewise, for our Si of t will be equal to summation. In a more compact way, if I try to bring it down, it is going to be summation j is equal to 1 to n Aij psi j of t, where I is equal to 1 to 1, 2, 3 up to m, and n is always less than or equal to m. And then what would be the value of this Aij? Aij is going to take up the value based on this particular expression. The coefficient Aij is the value of psi j of t component of signal S1 Si of t. The form of this particular psi j of t is not specified. It is chosen for convenience and will depend on the form of the signal waveforms. Why this vector space is required is because we said the noise distribution is additive and it is going to have a Gaussian distribution. So, therefore, the resulting distribution of the possible received signal in a cluster or a cloud of points around these values of Sj and Sk here, around these points Sj and Sk has to be noted. So, where it is falling close to in order to make the proper decision. So, now let us consider there is a receiver which has decided that, or which has to take upon some value, like whether this symbol R is very close to your Sj or it is very close to your Sk or it is very close to some other point in the M array set that is available. The measurement can be thought of a distance measurement. The receiver or detector must decide for which of this region that it is falling in the signal space is close to in distance to the received vector R. So, the analysis of all demodulation or detection schemes involves this concept of distance between a received waveform and a set of possible transmitted waveforms which are already existing. So, here the set of possible waveforms which are already transmitted is Sj and Sk. So, if this R is either falling to very close to Sj or falling very close at a distance to Sk has to be detected. So, a simple rule for the detector to follow is to decide that R belongs to the same class as its nearest neighbor or its nearest prototype vector, or it is some other prototype signal around your M array set. So depending on that, we are going to give the level or take the decision of that particular signal or the pulse that we have received in error. So the summary of the whole session is we concentrated on why baseband demodulation or detection is required, what are the error performances that are present, and then how do we represent this particular vector signal in terms of vector space, and how do we decide that the vector r, the received vector r is going to be present, and what will be the value of that received r based upon the pre-existing signals that has been already received. So hope you all understood and made the learning enjoyable. Happy learning. Thank you.